Welcome to the Higher Love with Megan podcast with me, your host, Megan Cooper, a trauma-informed therapist, life coach and disruptor of wellness norms based in Brighton, UK. This isn't another nice-to-have wellness podcast. Instead, this podcast seeks to redefine what it means to be well in today's world. Here, we challenge the status quo, seek to reunite wellness with social justice and improve accessibility, diversity and inclusivity within wellness and beyond. As a listener, you are not here to passively consume. Instead, you are an ambassador for real, embodied, societal and systemic change in the world. As your host, I stand for radical self-inquiry and being able to have those confronting but necessary conversations so that we can remember our collective humanity at this time. We're here for the revolution and you've got a front row seat. Welcome, Marina. I have been so excited to have this conversation with you today. So thank you so much for your time. I would love to firstly welcome you to the podcast and invite you to introduce yourself in any way that feels meaningful and relevant to you today.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's always weird when I'm even asked to introduce myself because there's this term that comes out, which is political commentator. I never thought that was what I was, but there's a way to label myself now. Basically, I started my political journey by putting out a few tweets here and there, and eventually it grew in traction. I ended up being this person with quite a big platform and then needing a label. But essentially, what am I? A very opinionated woman in a crazy world, trying to manage raising two very young kids. I've got a 3 and a 4-year-old, as well as a full-time job. I've got a full-time tech marketing career. And it's a crazy time, but I'm trying very much in the political space to be a voice for the people who are seeing what's going on and going, what the actual fuck is happening to the world? Reassuring people that they're not alone. And also with the podcast that I do, Gemma Forte, trying to bring a little bit of levity because it can all get very depressing.
I feel like we are seeing a shift in more people becoming politically informed and engaged and visible. Like you said, your political career started by putting tweets out. And I feel like that is happening more with people actually becoming more engaged, more informed, for better or worse. Would you say that there has been a shift in the last 10 years in terms of people being more engaged and active?
Yeah, it's rooted in privilege. For me, when did politics start directly impacting me in a way that I could feel it or it felt wrong? That is a position of privilege, right? Because other people have had to be involved in politics from day dot because they have been disadvantaged for whatever reason. For me, I was politically apathetic until my 30s. For many people, I think, it was Brexit. It was the Brexit referendum. I am the daughter of immigrant parents. My parents came over from Sicily. And I've always felt this big connection to Europe, to the EU. And I couldn't quite put my finger on why it meant so much to be part of the EU. Seeing the result and the morning of the result, and then the unfolding of the absolute disaster that it was and how much political capital was spent on it and how much it took away from everything, from the attention it should have been focused on, even COVID planning, to societal issues, and the disaster that it continues to be, got me absolutely hooked. Because once you dip your toe in the political water and you start to see the soap opera that it is, and actually what also starts to happen is the wool falls from your eyes. Is that the term? I always mix up my terms, but the wool, is that the right? The wool was pulled?
Rug is pulled, or the wool, I know what you mean.
Anyway, that one, I love it. Just a mishmash. For me, I'm like working class background. I always was of the belief that these people in political positions of power knew their stuff. I just accepted it. I would stay in my lane. And then the more I understood about Brexit and the incompetence behind it, the sort of lies behind it, and how it started to directly impact cost of living, like grocery shops, all that kind of stuff, hospitality, industries now on their knees as a result. I just thought, you people are bloody frauds. You have just got something that I didn't get in my working class background, which is that misplaced confidence and conviction and a very posh sounding voice.
Yes, totally. And it's interesting that you got into politics later on, because I'm the same. I'm 36 and I've only been, I would say, politically active and engaged in the last few years. It was really like my early 30s. My parents, when I was growing up, were very politically active. They were always campaigning about something and signing some petition and out doing something. And I was just like, oh, so lame type thing. Like, so grown up, so mature, so adult. And then I went through the stage in my 20s of just, oh, it's just a bit low vibe and, oh, let's talk about lighter stuff, that type of thing. But I feel like we're in this point in time where it's just, I can't look away. Like, we're moving in a certain trajectory. And I'm curious for you, how you communicate with people. If people say to you, oh, I'm just not interested in politics, or oh, I'm just not political. I don't know how much you get of that these days.
I've learned the hard way, Megan, because I'm in a place now, I think, as anyone who is politically engaged is, where it's always a constant drumbeat in your head. Like, what is going on in the world is a constant drum. You can't go shopping. You can't walk past the newspaper stand. There is a political link to everything. And this is quite a depressing link. I might be having a lovely lunch with my girls, right? And I feel a pang of guilt or a pang of a huge gratitude, but despair at what is going on in the world. We're there clinking glasses when what is happening in the Middle East, what is happening in Sudan, et cetera, et cetera. And so I've got this thing where I'm with people on a social level, and my family, I would say most people aren't like us. They haven't got that, which is lucky them, I guess. Ignorance is bliss. And so I find myself having these conversations, which are fun and light and surface level, but I've always got this sort of, it's within me to want to talk about something deeper. I found myself not in trouble, but I was on a family holiday a few years ago, and I ended up having, there was about 12 of us around the table. It was a really nice family holiday. And then I ended up in this political discussion, which I did not kick off, with a family member. Eventually, the numbers around the table dwindle because it's a bad vibe. People don't want to be around it. I end up having this awkward conversation with this family member. I remember thinking, I'm not doing this again. It puts people off, and I come across as a bit of an obsessive nutter. Most people aren't like that. But when you find your tribe, when you find people who are open to hearing it, I love having those conversations. Where I struggle is where you've got people who have very strong opinions, rooted in feeling and not fact, and they aren't willing to bend, and they aren't willing to be open-minded. I'm always happy to have my mind changed. I'm happy to be proved wrong. It can be a bitter pill to swallow. I've had it done live on TV debate shows, but if you're right, if you're able to prove to me, I will accept that position. It very much depends on who I'm with. Whereas sometimes I'm like, just don't bring it up. One of my very close friends, she was a maid of honour. She voted Brexit. And I think she knows now. I think she knows. But then there's a sneaking part of me that's, you're going to vote Reform, aren't you? I hope not. But again, we don't go there.
Before we go on, I'd so appreciate you to hit follow or subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify, click those 3 little dots next to settings to rate the show. On Apple Podcasts, you can leave a review, or take a moment to explore how you can rate or review on the platform that you're listening or watching. This makes a difference. I truly believe we need to have more of these conversations to shake up the status quo. We'll beat the algorithm together with your clicks and shares. Now back to the episode. And I think at the moment, there's so much more discomfort coming into the arena with the veil starting to drop. Like you said, being able to look at politicians and be like, fraud, you don't really know what you're speaking to. For me, it's also been recognizing that I had a certain amount of trust in the institutions and in the media, like the media will always tell the truth was something that was lodged in my head. And through seeing the veil slip, I feel like so many more of us have had to step in. And I'm curious for you how that was. You mentioned that you first started to speak out around the time of Brexit. You started to share on Twitter. And how was that process for you in the beginning? Was there fear of speaking out, or what was that process like for you?
Honestly, it's gone the other way. But I just want to make one point.
Sure.
Just the people that say, oh, I don't want to talk about politics or I'm not into politics are the people who aren't affected by it. And I think now, especially because we're seeing like the middle class is squeezed, all of a sudden I'm hearing friends go, what is going on? Why is my weekly food shop so expensive? Why is it that we have to have 2 working parent families and we still can't afford stuff? People are starting to switch on to that because it's impacting them. But to answer your next question, when I first started posting, I was very free. I tweeted whatever I wanted. I was probably a little bit more volatile. I could be a lot more sweary. I was a bit more antagonistic because I thought I was tweeting to no one. And maybe that's part of what appealed to people. And then as my platform grew, I started learning the hard way. The way I tweet now, talk now, oh my goodness, I can't tell you the difference. I have been threatened with lawsuits.
Wow.
4 times now.
Wow.
4 times, maybe more than that. I've had scary letters written to me by solicitors, people trying to, what feels like extortion. I'm just playing it so much safer now. And also I've had people try to disingenuously twist your words.
Yeah.
And so if you put even a slight foot wrong, that is screenshot. People will try and say that I was implying this when I clearly wasn't. And I've reduced how much I post as a result. And also because, let's be honest, X, which was my primary platform, is a bloody cesspit. I find my mood level, if I open X, drops. Even if I'm in the app for about 5-10 minutes.
Totally. I can really understand that. Firstly, I can't believe you've had 4 potential lawsuits.
Possibly more.
That's just insane. But I can understand that too, because context is so important with any conversation. On social media, we're making these small clips or things like that. Even with my podcast, I'll put a 30-second, 50-second clip of a conversation. And just the other day, for example, I clipped together 2 bits. For me, that made total sense. But then the person on the show was like, oh, we were actually talking about separate things and now it's changed the meaning. And I was like, oh, shit, like I hadn't even come into my head. And I didn't do that with any kind of angle of trying to find a different meaning. But I guess with the political sphere being as it is, there's always this element of trying to inflame or trying to slander in some kind of way. So I can think about how things could come across in different contexts. It's interesting that's gone the other way for you. I know that you wrote recently about something that, a reference to one post from September, you said regarding an article on Substack, you wrote about empathy. The caption read, I won't be sharing this article relating to Charlie Kirk on X, not after the response on my tweet. The backlash wasn't something I could just mute and forget. It wasn't the usual noise. It was chilling. And for the first time, I found myself wondering whether it's worth it. Is that what you've just been speaking to about this fear that can come in of speaking up?
Yeah, that is absolutely an element to it. And so the day that Charlie Kirk was shot, I opened Instagram. I didn't want to see the footage, but it was just right there. This is the thing. Do you remember back in the day, if you were a kid and you wanted to look at something really disturbing, you'd have to go searching for it.
Yeah.
Now you open your Instagram, which used to be recipes, fashion, whatever, and now it is dead children or Charlie Kirk getting shot. I saw this and it made me feel really sick. And I think it's because I'm just so scared about the world that we live in. He was a commentator, a vile one, in my opinion, but he was allowed to make those comments. And the fact that people are getting shot for saying these kinds of things. I too am a political commentator. Am I putting myself in danger here? I've been on the receiving end of some really horrible, quite threatening, to the point where I'm like, do I take these to the police messages? So I, in that moment, wanted to put something out that was a kind of like a uniting, because I did see people on the left celebrating it. And I just thought, even if in your heart you are going, great, don't bloody say it. How does it help? I just wanted to put something out there. So I put out this tweet about being pro-humanity, like so many of us are. It actually stings whenever someone dies. It doesn't matter who they are. It will sting. The response I got to what was fairly innocuous tweets actually made me scared a little bit, because I had so much anger. The tweet must have gone viral somehow in the US or with the US audience. And I had people coming for me, absolutely coming for me, because I had said, we even feel humanity for those who spent their lives spreading divisive whatever, and it was that they took issue with. But then, Megan, I didn't just have the hate from people on that side of the argument. I had vitriol from people on the left saying I shouldn't have been putting out that message. Like, why did I have sympathy for him? But it got vicious to a point where I muted the replies. People felt so impassioned, and it was a very febrile kind of time. And then I thought, delete it. It is not worth it. I started to worry for my safety a little bit.
Wow. It's crazy that I think it's the times through which we're living where everything is so urgent, isn't it? Like literally day by day, so much is coming through on social media. Something can go viral within 10 minutes. It's out there. I had not on the scale that you did, but I did a video just mentioning around Charlie Kirk and talking about the hypocrisy of Western media. And it had 500,000 views. It was just being shared everywhere. And I also was not prepared for the abuse that came as a result of that on all different spectrums. And it's really challenging, isn't it? Because it's like, you're also just a person, with feelings. I think I've grown a pretty thick skin over the years, but there are just some things which is, wow, we live in a really interesting age. But I imagine that you get a lot of challenging comments, shitty comments, nasty comments. How do you deal with that? Obviously not on the scale that you did with that particular article, but on the daily.
Really simply, and I always tell Gemma this, who I do the podcast with, just don't look at the replies, especially on X. If you're going to have to use it, for me, it is my largest platform. Like just tweet and go, post and go, don't look. But on Instagram, I feel like I've got a nicer crowd. What I try to remind myself, and I tell Gemma this often, because she gets the same abuse. And people always, when it's women, they always go for our appearance. It's whatever they think is going to hurt us. I always try to remind myself that these people, and I base this on what I see in my day-to-day life, when people recognize me or come up to me in the street, I have only once had a person say something negative to me. Funnily enough, that was at Labour conference. I think they said something like, there's that communist. Overwhelmingly, the people that come up to me say really lovely things about the pod or whatever. I try and remind myself that while the internet has been good for so many things, it's also empowered a whole world of people who would never dare come up to you.
Yeah.
If they saw me in the street, they wouldn't dare, but they are emboldened, they are empowered. And especially in these very times that we live in, they are emboldened to be mean, nasty. And I used to be, by the way, when I started tweeting, because I was a bit reckless, I could be a bit like that. And I have learnt to just tone it down.
Yeah. It's really interesting. It's definitely something I wanted to speak to you about, of the differences that you experience firsthand and see of how women are treated in the political space versus men. Because I even hear it from other women where they're like, oh, I don't like her voice, or just like making those kind of comments. And I'm like, God, why do we do this to each other? It makes me angry just thinking about it. I was reading Jeremy Clarkson's article in the Times about Zach Polanski. I was just like, how does he get away with saying this shit? But a woman who says something I'm sure would be treated in a different way.
Jeremy Clarkson I did tweet about his comment that he made about Zach Polanski's teeth. Just because I can't imagine, we all know the saying, those in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. Have you seen Jeremy Clarkson's teeth? I envy that sort of lifelong cocktail of ignorance, believing one's own hype, self-assurance and arrogance, that he would take to a national newspaper, write a column and take the piss out of someone else's appearance. You have a face like a scrotum, Jeremy. I just don't understand how you can have that confidence to say that. But thankfully, he did get a massive backlash for that.
Yeah.
Because people said, hang on a second now. Have you seen a mirror, Jeremy?
I suppose what I perhaps see is women political commentators such as yourself versus male political commentators. And do you find that there is a difference in how you were treated versus how men might be treated? Do you feel like there is this kind of level of internalized misogyny in the space? What do you think to that?
I think there is. So what I've encountered is unconscious bias, sexism. I also know I look the way I do, right? I look a bit, how can I describe? Glam. And when I go on, say, the Jeremy Vine show and I come out of makeup and hair's all done, and then I sit next to, there we go, and my hair's all done, and then I'm in the green room and Kwasi Kwarteng walks in, he's probably thinking, oh, who's she? When he did walk into the green room when I was up against him, I don't think he'd even bothered to see who he was speaking with. He had no idea who I was. I'm surprised he didn't think I was. Anyway, we end up going out and having a bit of a debate. For me, it's having to convince people that I actually know what I'm talking about. There is a perception of I'm possibly there because I look a certain way versus actually what I've got to say for myself.
Totally. I guess why I felt like there was some level of internalized misogyny is just from some of the things that have been said to me as I've started to be more vocal, where men have said, you're just being divisive. And I'm like, hang on, but if my husband said that, would you say that to him? There's just something there that feels, and I'm not going to press it, but it's something there that feels like my husband, who's just, bless him, he was like, you're not difficult, you're passionate. And other men get very intimidated by that. So I don't know if there is something.
I'm glad you said that, because I think that is a thing. So look, my husband, whether he regrets his choices or not, I don't know, that's a conversation for another time. But it takes a certain type of man to be with women like us that are very opinionated and are going to go out, and we're going to make sure like we're heard. And I think for a lot of men who are happy with the status quo and patriarchy, that is not going to sit well with them. I think a submissive woman is quite appealing to a lot of men. It possibly goes back to why a lot of men don't want the status quo to change, because it works very nicely for them. That's absolutely fine, because I'm never going to want to be with a person that doesn't want me to speak out. And as for the guys who do come on to social, I get them as well saying, oh, pipe down, love, get back in the kitchen. I get loads of that sort of stuff. Feel sorry for you. Well done on your little dopamine hit of thinking you've sent that comment to me and I've read it. But all I'm thinking is you're one of life's fucking losers and you've probably not been shagged in God knows how long. So I don't do you, darling. One person said to me something like, you're only on Jeremy Vine because you've married a footballer. And I'm like, Jeremy Vine, no one knew who my husband was. But I said, if it makes you feel better to think that, rather than to know that I've got a full-time, actually successful career and I do this stuff on top, then you do you, darling. You do you.
Totally. I always find it interesting to then click on people's profile pictures and it's them like holding two daughters. And I'm like, are you going to tell your daughters to get back in the kitchen? Weird.
I had a situation with one guy. I had 3 daughters and he said something to me on Twitter and it was really sexist. I can't remember what it was, something along those lines. I just went back and said, would you say that to your daughters? And how would your daughters feel if they knew their dad was saying that to women on the internet? Fair play to him. He came back and he apologised.
Wow. Oh my God. Yeah. Right. I'm going to start doing this. But no, I love that. Actually, in my wedding speech, because obviously I made a speech, I actually read a poem about being married to an awakened woman, which is all of this, of just like all of our difficult parts out in the room. My husband very fortunately prides himself on being married to a quote unquote difficult woman. So they do exist out there. I wanted to ask you about this because something that came up in an episode that I did earlier this year with photographer and activist Miss Anne Harriman is this notion that we need more women in rooms. We always say that we need more women at the top who are CEOs, more women in politics. But he highlighted how often when women get there, they are so changed beyond a lot of the qualities that make women so brilliant in these spaces, like basic human empathy. I think that's probably lacking from some of the women in the political sphere that we have currently. I'm wondering what you make of that in the current climate of women in politics.
I think it's sadly true for many women. I think you just need to look at people like Liz Truss, Priti Patel, Suella Braverman, over in the US, Caroline Levitt. These are women who empathy appears to have disappeared. That said, obviously, there shouldn't be a pressure on women to, you're a woman, you must be empathetic, you must bring that to the boardroom table. But sadly, because they have been so male dominated, I think it's only natural that as you're climbing that ladder, you end up conforming more to what is success. Right. So if that's what success looks like, that's more of what I'm going to be like. This is why DEI, diversity, equity and inclusion, is so important. We need more people at the table who can bring their true selves. Otherwise, it's just bloody tokenism. And you only need to look across to places where they do this properly, and I'm going to call out Finland here. Finland, which has for the past 8 years won happiest country on earth, according to the UN Happiness Index.
Okay.
Yes. Another interesting point to add to that is from, I believe it was 2003, but you need to check this. The most powerful positions in the Finnish government were held by women. I think it shows how it's really important to have women at the table who aren't moulded into the shape of a man. The whole notion that women have, for decades, been positioned as the emotional gender, the emotional sex. And actually, somehow, we've all been gaslit into thinking anger isn't an emotion. Aggression isn't an emotion. Look at the state of the bloody world. Look at those three men. Look at Netanyahu. Look at Trump. Look at Putin. Are they not the most emotionally irrational bastards? And yet, oh, no, they're absolutely fine. Which is why I think, yes, we just need more women coming through to turn the temperature down a little bit.
Yes, definitely. Just on that theme of anger, do you experience ongoing rage in the face of things going on?
I have so much rage. I don't know whether it's a hormonal thing. Sometimes, and most of the time I would say I'm lovely. But yes, I can experience rage. I get it. I get it a lot. Are we talking politically or personally?
General, we'll just go through both.
I can get ticked off by very small things around the house, like domestic things concerning my husband, because he's still very domesticated, but he's wonderful in lots of other ways. But the thing that does enrage me is how many bad actors we have in our politics. It enrages me, the hypocrisy, the incompetence, the stance that people take to protect the interests of other people. And I'm going to zone in on the Middle East here. I just can't understand this desperation for world leaders to bend over backwards for Netanyahu, where they are choosing Netanyahu over their own citizens. You heard people like Senator Ted Cruz in the States actually say, as a US senator, his first and foremost priority is Israel. As an American senator. And then you come over to the UK and you have got Keir Starmer looking to protect a group of football hooligans who were banned by the Israeli police and saying that it's just, I can't quite get my head around this. Lisa Nandy, once upon a time, used to speak out about the weapons being sent to Israel. And now that change, that buying of that apparent buying, or what seems like our politicians being bought, makes me sick. That makes me so angry. And the thing is, it's just so brazen now. The corrupting of our politicians is so brave. Stuff like this enrages me, and we see it day to day. I'm so bothered by what's going on in the States. I feel terrible for our American friends there because of what's going on there. But yes, lots of rage, Megan. I'll keep taking my magnesium supplements.
We're in good company here. And I mean, with Shabana Mahmood as well. I've watched her videos speaking at Palestine Solidarity campaign events, and I've seen her speak at protests saying, this is a peaceful protest. People have a right to protest. We're not here to spread hate. Versus her going on TV saying it's okay for you to have freedoms, but you don't need to exercise your freedom every single moment of every single day. What has happened here?
So that is the question. But then I have this same question of billionaires who can never get enough. For example, the fact that over in the US we've got government shutdown because they're trying to figure out how best to raise these funds to give tax cuts to the billionaires. What happens to the mental workings of a human when they get to that level of wealth or power? Is it like an actual disease? What is it about? You can't spend that money. You can't even give it away. You could solve world hunger, but you want more. That to me is like a sickness. And is it the same with power? So with Shabana Mahmood, with Lisa Nandy, when you get to that position, when you've got ministerial cars taking you from A to B, is it so intoxicating that your principles become up for sale?
It's so interesting, isn't it? My husband and his kind of slightly more grounded response to things and his secure, stable nervous system is always absolute power corrupts. And I'm there like, raging. I'm curious because the rage is there every single day. It seems at the moment like a day is a week and a week is a month and a month is a year with all of the stuff that is happening every single day. I'm curious for you, and I suppose I probably know the answer for this, but what do you do with that anger for you? What do you do with that rage? Where does it go?
I'm going to be really honest with your listeners and say I don't think I've got a healthy approach to it at all. I think it's partly because I wish I was not like this, but it's partly because my life is I'm always on the back foot. I never have enough hours in the day. It's trying to juggle everything, family life, work, political stuff, having friends, trying to do exercise, which I just don't even bloody do anymore. And as a result, I feel like my nervous system I'm always on edge. Like, I actually think the part of the reason I have been able to maintain an all right figure, despite the fact that I have stopped spinning that exercise plate, is because I have constant nervous energy. I have constant adrenaline. I never stop. As a result, sometimes I need a glass of wine to take me down from fifth gear into third, into second, because otherwise I am just going at 100 miles per hour. Like the other day, I was having a shower and I couldn't enjoy my shower because in that shower, I was thinking of all the stuff. I had so many thoughts running through my head of stuff that I needed to do, things I need to make a note of, that I couldn't even enjoy my shower. I was like, just get out of the shower and do this stuff. I don't go for walks as much as I should. I don't do yoga. I have got this new habit that I'm trying to do at the moment, which is if I've got a really long work call, like a town hall or something, I will sit. I've got very fortunate to have a Peloton, and I will sit on my Peloton and I will watch the entire meeting doing a ride, like a scenic ride. Honestly, I don't know. I used to have faith. Like I used to actually pray, and then I lost my faith. I was raised Catholic because of my Italian parents. I used to say things at night to say, thank you for this, as practice gratitude to help. And then I got to a point that was really despairing where I was just like, who am I frigging talking to? Because look at the world. No one is listening. I felt quite low about it. So basically, I'm not doing very well there, Megan. Maybe I could do with a little bit of advice, some wellness coaching.
Thank you so much for sharing that, because I think it's really important. I think everyone's just doing their best. Like you said, you go onto Instagram, pictures of dead children, people getting shot. This world that we're living in is absolutely insane. I made a video recently picking up on how impactful it feels at this time to be constantly gaslit by our government, and the impact of that and the trauma that it brings up for all of us.
It feels like abuse.
Totally. It's like being in an abusive dynamic 24/7 because of all of the things that are going on. And for so many people who I know who are engaged with things, exactly as you've said, things have slipped in other areas of their life. And I think it's important for people to hear that in other people too. From my perspective, I can always think, oh, they've probably got all of their shit together. And actually, all of us are just doing our freaking best all of the time.
Absolutely. Never believe what's on the gram. Never believe what's on the gram.
My husband and I actually this year decided to do a year of no drinking. And I got about halfway through and I was like, fuck's sake, why did we pick this year? I could definitely do with a few glasses of wine now. I wanted to ask, in a time where hope can feel difficult, like you have said, what do you feel does bring you hope, if anything, at this time?
When I make a conscious effort to tune out from the noise and the news and focus on my kids, that's when I feel most at peace. I also feel like actually trying to get myself, when I'm with my friends, when I'm with my family, trying to just really lean into the moment, put the phone away. That helps. In terms of looking forward, it's that sort of arc of moral justice, right? Everything is cyclical. And unfortunately, we are in that part of history now. We're going through the really shit time before we come out the other end. The hard bit is because so much of it feels irreversible with regards to what's happened in the Middle East, with regards to us missing our climate targets just the other day that was announced by the UN. I am hopeful that maybe having to go through the pain will turn us around. A little bit of time on our side. If you boil that down to a UK level, those of us who see what's going on are terrified at the prospect of a reform government. But I am starting to find hope in the Greens. I'm even starting to find hope in reform getting as much limelight as they do. Light here might be the best form of disinfectant because
it's like
they
touched her. Totally in the MP the other day. What was it that kind of fell out? It was that scene of, oh, I didn't mean to say that. It just came out. And she just,
what, Sarah Poachin?
Yes.
So says she's so angry.
It was somebody else that said people who are born and bred here, and then she said, I didn't mean to say that. It just fell out of my mouth. And the person interviewing her was just like, that's unfortunate for you.
Yes.
Like the truth will out.
Exactly. If Farage is going to drop talking about a house that he's bought. It's going to trigger questions around how did your partner afford that? If the mask is going to slip, and we're going to see things like Sarah Pochin's disgusting remarks. If we're going to see Kent County Council, which is supposed to be their petri dish, and the absolute shambles it is, and them spending, 457 quid on flags, like £75,000. Then maybe if they're doing that at the same time that Green Party, even the Lib Dems who are doing well, are starting to get some of that limelight and actually starting to cut through, then I think we can turn it around. We can turn this ship around before hopefully it hits an iceberg.
Yeah, totally. I think so. And I think we have to hold on to that. And I think for myself, and I'm sure that you and Gemma probably experience this, I channel so much of my unmetabolized rage into creating. I have my podcast, you guys have your podcast, and also what you two experience together is a community in many ways. I think you mentioned it at the beginning of the session as well. Social media has allowed us to find each other a lot more easily. There are negative bits about social media, but we're constantly connecting with new people and finding people who are saying things similar to us but in different ways, and it lands things easily. And I think that we are in many ways finding community, which is the antidote to so much of this kind of isolation and division and disconnection anyway. So I feel like things are happening, but it's obviously just challenging to be there. I am very much refreshed by my friends who have studied social justice movements and say, oh yeah, we're just in stage whatever of a social revolution and things like that. And I'm like, okay, that's reassuring. It's just shit while we're here, but that's hopefully leading to a positive trajectory.
Yeah, like I did read the other day, even though it feels really bleak, the quality of life that the majority of us have is the best it's ever been. Like about 100 years ago, people weren't even having warm showers. The quality of life has definitely improved. It just doesn't feel like that because we are exposed to so much. But just on that point as well, it's because I think our press just did such a shit job. Our press there are so many blind spots, and that's the reason why voices like yours, like Femi, like mine, like Gemma's, are becoming more prominent. People are gravitating to a source of what feels like truth.
Yeah.
And people speaking in a way that's okay. They're calling out, it's not just me, I'm not going mad. The Trawl podcast, that's TRAWL, is a complete catharsis. And our gorgeous community, we've got over, what is it? Something like 2.7 million listeners. Anyway,
amazing.
They love it. I think people tune into the news agents podcast and they enjoy it, but people love it. It is a community, and people say it's like group therapy.
Totally. I feel like I'm sat in my kitchen having a great informative conversation with the two of you, which is great.
Oh, thank you.
Just on that, for people who are on the fence, nervous about speaking about political things and they're interested, but I think that it's been very intentional, this idea of, it's complicated. And I think that's being quite intentionally put out into the ether. You don't know enough, so you shouldn't talk about this type thing.
Yeah.
For people who are wanting to be more informed, wanting to step in, what would you say to those people?
Don't worry about making a misstep. And I've noticed throughout my life, the people who tend to be most concerned about putting a foot wrong are the most conscientious. The ones who are least well informed have the loudest voices sometimes. And so, do you know what? Just if there is a particular look, you don't have to learn everything at once. You don't have to become an expert on the Middle East. But if there is an area of politics that has triggered you, that has got you interested for whatever reason, maybe it's education, maybe it is the cost of living crisis, whatever it is, there are people you can go to, and you'll start to see them as you search, but there are certain news publications. I really like Byline Times, The New European. In fact, it's called New World now. Carol Codwaller does. Certain writers, Ian Dunt, and political commentators like Ash Sakar, for example. Politics Joe. These are people, organisations where they aren't billionaire-backed. They haven't got vested interests. And also, do you know what? If it is a particular area, go and do it yourself. Don't Google it. Don't go to Facebook. Don't go and see your uncles saying about it on Facebook. Go and read something within Hansard. Go and read something on the government website. Go and read a Guardian article about it. Go and read an LSC publication about it. That's what I do when I'm trying to get to the bottom of something like, has immigration impacted the housing crisis? Go and find out, and don't do that by going to the Daily Mail or some right-wing commentator. Go to an actual commissioned work from an academic body not some dodgy right-wing think tank. It is a minefield out there. It is tough. But you know what? I think as soon as you start searching this stuff, the algorithm starts pointing you in the right direction, hopefully.
Yeah, thank you so much. Is there anything that you wanted to add to our conversation today?
Just to say, I feel lighter just having this conversation, which enforces how important it is to not carry this stuff on your own. Yes. If you are feeling the angst of anxiety about what's happening in the world, there are other people that feel like you, and you can have that solidarity. We're not all super worthy people. That's all we talk about, but just find your podcast, find your people, talk about it, and together like laugh at the madness and try and find the areas of hope. To cling on to too.
Thank you so much for your time today. I've had a lovely time speaking to you, and thank you so much for the podcast that you and Gemma do. All of the information will be in the show notes for anyone listening today. I'll be tuning in with you soon. Thank you for listening. It's great to have you with me on this journey towards higher love for all. Our time is our greatest commodity and gift, so thanks for investing it in yourself and sharing it with me. Please do take a moment to rate and review the show, all of which enables more people to find me and for me to connect with more great guests each week for both yours and my enjoyment. All links, references and contact information is detailed too within the show notes. And I always love to hear your feedback, so feel free to hit me up on my Instagram at higherlove_with_Megan or via my website higher-love.com. Send your takeaways, and if you enjoyed this episode, please share or send on to someone else who would benefit. Until next time, big love.